we go again.
Here we go again. Hello everybody, Jason here, April 30th, and it looks like Israel has struck Iranian targets in Syria again. March to World War III continues, so let's just start off by getting into this. I think it's the UK Telegraph. Yep, so here it is. Alright. The shadow war between Israel and Iran and Syria escalated sharply on Monday after suspected Israeli strikes killed 26 Iranian and Assad regime fighters, according to monitors. One strike tore through a military base dug into a mountain near the central city of Hama on Sunday night, just last night, causing an explosion so large it registered as a 2.6 magnitude earthquake. A second strike targeted an airbase near the northern city of Aleppo. There was no claim of responsibility for the attack, but suspicion immediately fell on Israel, which has carried out a number of strikes as it tries to prevent Iran from building up a military presence in Syria and transferring weapons to Hezbollah, the Lebanese military group. Like always, Israel's military declined to comment, as it usually does on operations in Syria. However, Israeli Prime Minister convened an emergency meeting today, Monday. Ministers are believed to have discussed the strikes and Mr. Netanyahu's plans to make a speech on significant development related to the Iran nuclear deal. So, the Iran nuclear deal, there's been a lot of talk of Trump pulling out of that, and if Trump pulls out of that, war is... The only reason to get out of the nuclear deal with Iran is to be able to wage war without having any legal, problems. They can do whatever they want. They have the power, but they like to have the world think that they're doing everything on the up and up. So as far as this nuclear deal is still going on between the U.S. and Iran, clearly it isn't going to stop Israel from doing things, but it would definitely be preferable for the Western powers to have gotten out of that to be able to wage a war against Iran. So there's that. Anyway, moving on to casualties. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that 26 people were killed in the strike in Hama and that the vast majority of the casualties were Iranians. Iranian media initially reported that 18 Iranians had been killed in the strike, but later retracted the claim. That's really interesting. We'll get back to that in a minute. Later, Iranian officials denied that any of their forces had been killed. Quote, all these reports over attack on an Iranian military base in Syria and the martyrdom of several Iranian military advisors in Syria are baseless, an Iranian official told the semi-official Tasnim news agency. Let's see. Israel's increasingly bold strikes against Iranian targets deep inside Syria and Iran's angry threats in response have raised fears that the two sides may be heading for a full-blown war, which could potentially also involve Iran's allies in Hezbollah and the Assad regime, and they don't point out it could also involve Russia, who has said time and time again that they are going to take action if these war crimes against Syria and Iran continue. They don't like to talk about that. They don't want us to think that World War III is just around the corner, and hopefully it's not, but Israel is pushing as hard as they can to get that going. That's my opinion. The main target of the strike was an underground facility built into Mount Takis in Hama. The base is believed to be a military site where the Syrian regime developed ballistic missiles with help from North Korea. More recently, Iranian forces are alleged to have operated from the base. Well, they're allies, so obviously it's just like Russia. Russia has bases they share with Syria, and Syria shares their bases with Iran, so on and so forth. They're allies. We do the same thing with our allies. There's nothing odd about that. However, Israel is needing war with Iran. It's what they've been going after for years now, and it looks like they finally declared war on Iran, And now, strangely enough, Iran is denying that Iranians have died, despite the immediate reports that there were dozens upon dozens of people, that it was a bloodbath, and that there were at least 18 Iranian fighters killed. So, that's interesting. The reasons Iran might be denying it is so that they do not have to carry out retaliatory strikes right away. I believe Israel is... oh, now my page is unresponsive. Anyway, it is my belief that the Israelis are currently attempting to bait Iran into striking them, at which point they would have a lot more credibility in the eyes of the world in waging a full-on war against Iran, which is what they're pushing for. And by later denying that the Iranians had been hit, it gives them time, and it gives them, ability in the eyes of their people to not do anything right away and to not be seen as weak, because this is a lot of Iranian soldiers that have been struck now. It's believed to be the site that was hit yesterday. It was the 47th Brigade. I believe a lot of Shia Pakistanis that fight for Iran were the ones that were actually killed, according to initial reports before Iran withdrew that statement. And Iran has on multiple occasions vowed retaliation against the strikes. 3 weeks ago or so, when Israel struck the T4 base, killing at least 7 Iranians and 14 Syrians. This strike also hit many Syrian soldiers as well, and there were many civilians injured as well. So this was, like many initial reports are reporting, appears to be quite the bloodbath, and Iran is surely going to take retaliatory action after this. However, the fact that they are now denying that they were hit gives them time to wait and allow Israel to strike yet again. Israel's really, I think, I already said this, but I want to reiterate this, that Israel's trying to bait them so they have the pretext to wage a full-out war. And I believe that both Russia and Iran and Syria are all being as patient as they can, trying their absolute best to get Israel to stand down without actually striking Israel. However, this latest strike, I think it's gonna push. I think it's gonna push those powers into war, which would probably get Russia involved, probably get us involved. If Iran were to strike Israel, surely the U.S. would get involved, and from there we get World War III. So anyway, let's continue on with this story and not the bigger picture at this point. So the site was hit around 10:30 p.m. on Thursday. It wasn't Thursday, it was Sunday. I don't know what they're... wow. Mainstream media can't even get their days straight. Anyway, the site was hit around 10:30 p.m. on Sunday, and video footage showed a vast explosion rising into the night sky as munitions exploded inside the base. The unknown person who filmed the video gasped audibly as the flames rose. We already talked about the 2.6 earthquake. Here we go. Michael Horowitz, a senior analyst at the Lebanon geopolitical consultancy, said the strikes were deeper into Syria than Israeli forces usually venture, and that the attack in Hama appeared to involve massive weaponry to penetrate the mountainside. The reason for the big explosions that you can see here is it was an ammunitions depot, all reports are saying, and likely also where Syria manufactured surface-to-surface missiles, and so it makes sense that there was a massive explosion. Alright, Israel's increasingly bold strikes against Iranian targets deep inside Syria. I've already read that. Sorry guys, moving down. Page is being a little slow. I apologize for my slow internet sometimes. Dang it! Alright, here's back to Horowitz. The context is very important because we are a few weeks away from the possible collapse of the Iran nuclear agreement and the possibility that Iran will resume its nuclear program. Just what I was talking about earlier. The timing is just can't be ignored. I think this strike send a message to Iran that Israel can strike these underground facilities, Mr. Horowitz said. Yeah, I'm sure it did send that message. Israel has been appealing for months to both Russia and the U.S. to use their influence to rein in Iran's military buildup in Syria. So far, its diplomatic efforts have yielded little success. Diplomatic efforts. Alright, that's not really what Israel's been engaged in, but, you know, mainstream media. In the absence of a diplomatic breakthrough, Israel has carried out increasingly regular strikes inside Syria in the hope of raising the cost for Iran and potentially convincing Russia that its own interests in Syria would be damaged by heightened Israeli-Iranian conflict. And if that were to occur, then I would not be surprised if Russia takes action, and then that wouldn't just be Russian interest being damaged, that would be world war. But like I said, they don't want to really talk about that. Iran's supreme leader said Monday, that's today I believe, that the U.S. was trying to push Saudi Arabia into war with Iran. Americans are trying to provoke Saudi Arabia against Tehran, he said. Their aim is to create more regional crisis. His comments came after Mike Pompeo, the new U.S. Secretary of State, visited Saudi Arabia and Israel, promising to take hardline against Iran during both stops. And more of the impeccable timing, the new Secretary of State, days after he is put in as the new Secretary of State, he is, taking a hard line against Iran. So let's first go over here and look at what he said. And then we'll take a look at that other statement that preceded it. Okay. Here we go. They're all... Come on, slow internets. Strikes in northwest Syria on Sunday night could bring retaliation from Tehran if Iranian personnel were killed. Former Israeli Defense Force Intelligence Chief Amos Yadlin said on Monday today. Yadlin, a retired army general, said the intensity of the blasts at military bases near Hama and Aleppo, so big they caused what felt like a minor earthquake, indicated they were likely not carried out by Syrian rebels who are under attack by the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. This is what he said. Either the United States augmented the attack it led about 2 weeks ago, and if it wasn't the United States, that leaves one possibility that I can't confirm, Yadlin told Israeli Army Radio, meaning Israel is the one possibility he can't confirm because Israel doesn't ever like to confirm their activity in Syria, Iran, etc. The Syrian army confirmed the strikes, with the military source telling official news agency Sana that some military sites in the countryside of Hama and Aleppo provinces were exposed at 10:30 p.m. to a new aggression with hostile rockets. Syrian media outlets said the strikes hit the Syrian Army's 47th Brigade, as I mentioned earlier, and a facility north of the Aleppo International Airport. An opposition source said the army base was a well-known recruitment center for the Iranian-backed Shiite militias that fight alongside Assad's forces. There's nothing strange about that. As I just pointed out earlier, they're allies. That's what allies do. It's what the U.S. does. It's what Israel does. It's what all countries do. It's just when our so-called enemies do it, it's this bad, evil thing. When we do it, it's normal. It's what allies do. The casualties were Syrians, they would simply be another addition to the 500,000 people already killed in the civil war to this day. However, if they are Iranians, it will be added to the unfinished business they have with us, Israel. And then the month of May will be very volatile. So as you can see, the Israelis, as they've been doing for the past week, Israeli media, Israeli government has been pushing the narrative that Iran is going to strike and that they need to do something to stop Iran from striking them. So they continue to do these unprovoked acts of war against Iran, this one in particular, absolutely unprovoked. And then Iran obviously gets mad, says they're going to retaliate, just like most nations do when they get attacked, and then The Israeli media pushes that. They don't actually carry out the retaliatory strikes, but Israel continues to push that narrative that they're coming, we got to do something to stop it, and then they do this again to try to egg them on, to try to bait them in, because if they can get Iran to strike Israel, within Israel, to hit Israeli targets inside Israel, they will have the world behind them, and by the world I mean the West. That's what I think is coming. Let's see if we can get down to, here we go, the quotes we're looking for. Sunday's strikes came a few hours after what appears to have been a friendly meeting between Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and newly installed U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Netanyahu called Pompeo a true friend of Israel and a true friend of the Jewish people. Pompeo said Israel had a special place in his heart. And for anyone who's been following and knows what's going on, been following the news, we all know what that means when a U.S. official says Israel had a special place in his heart. It means if Israel's attacked by Iran, we'll join. It means if Israel asks us to get involved over there as they've been doing, we will, and we have, and we are. And World War seems to be coming. Pompeo also offered tough talk on Iran, saying President Donald Trump would withdraw from the 2015 Iran nuclear deal if we can't fix it, and assuring Netanyahu that the U.S. is deeply concerned about Iran's dangerous escalation of threats to Israel and the region, and Iran's ambition to dominate the Middle East. What about Israel's ambition to dominate the Middle East? What about Israel's dangerous escalation of threats against Iran? See, this is all one-sided. It's to paint Iran as the villain when Iran has been under attack by Israel time and time again. And time again, they don't retaliate. If they do move to retaliate, it's intercepted before the retaliation happens, like the somewhat recent Iranian drone that the Israelis captured and then carried out strikes on Iranian targets in retaliation, and that's when their jet was shot down by Syrian anti-aircraft because they were hitting Iranian targets inside Syria, not inside Iran. So this time, however, there was no drones, none of that. There's no retaliation by Iran, nothing but threats, and Israel threatens Iran all the time. So this time, it was absolutely unprovoked, preemptive, war crime, bloodbath. It's just rather sickening. Iran also promised to respond to the previous strike on the T4 military base. It's no secret that the Iranians have unfinished business with us, Yadlin told the army radio. In their view, we are responsible for the previous attack. Well, who else would be responsible? And now, before they were even able to respond, there was another attack. See, even the Israeli officials admitted, before they were able to respond, there was another attack. So obviously Iran sees this as an absolute threat, an absolute act of war, an absolute declaration of war against Iran. And this is what it's been building up to in the past few weeks. There's the possibility it was the U.S. involved in these strikes, but it's highly likely that it was Israel. And if it was not, it's an action that Israel's been pushing for. So whether or not Israeli jets carried out the strikes, this was an Israeli operation, in my opinion. But the Israeli official added, he believes a response is coming, even if it is not clear when or where. The Iranian retaliation is on its way, he said. See, he keeps pushing this, Iranian retaliation, Iranian retaliation. Hasn't happened yet. It makes sense that it will happen after this, though. Alright, so let's go back here. So here, this is what Iran's supreme leader said. Going back to this again. Americans are trying to provoke Saudi Arabia against Tehran. Their aim is to create more regional crisis. Now, interestingly enough, just recently, let's see if I can get this in here so that I can get you see the quote. This is what the Saudi crown prince said, was it maybe about 2 weeks ago? It was, I think it was after the U.S. strikes on Syria, but it was definitely after the alleged gas attack hoax. So this is what he says in response to the ramped up push for war to topple the Assad regime, and Iran's also involved because they're allies with Assad. Your question concerns the participation of Saudi Arabia in action against the Syrian regime. If our alliance with our partners calls for it, we will step up.
Real reason.
So that was from the last video I made. If you guys haven't seen it, I would highly recommend watching it. But so that's what happens. That's Saudi Arabia. If people can't see, this is Saudi Arabia and Israel. That's what this is all about. And Saudi Arabia is getting involved. It would appear that Iran is not crazy. They're just telling the truth. So now let me go to my blog post where I can further... Alright. I can shrink this to get it inside. Maybe not. Well, sorry about that. It's a little cut off here, but this is what Trump said, I believe, on Thursday at a press conference with French President Macron. He said he was going to withdraw the troops soon, but not until we leave a long and lasting... What was the presence? What was the word here? I've got it here. Alright, this is what Trump said. We want to come home. We'll be coming home, but we want to leave a strong and lasting footprint, and that was a big part of our discussion, Trump said during a joint press conference with Macron. So he says we'll be coming home soon. He says it later in the press conference, but not until we've left a strong and lasting footprint. So they've been discussing behind the scenes how to leave a strong and lasting footprint in Syria without Americans getting mad that American soldiers are dying. How do you do that? You get, our allies or our funded terrorist groups, regimes that fund terrorist groups. It's a proxy war, and we get them to do the fighting for us. So here's what Trump said in this same speech on, I believe it was Thursday. The countries that are there that you all know very well are going to have to pay for this, Trump said, and they will pay for it. The U.S. will not continue to pay, and they will also put soldiers on the ground, which they're not currently doing. So yeah, we've got definitely war building up over there. Tensions are tight, and so far Iran's not reacting. Russia's not reacting. I mean, Russia is giving S-300 missiles to Syria, which I believe another indication that Israel's pushing for the world war. We may hit Russian systems in Syria, Israel says, after threats of catastrophic consequences. Russia announced they were going to send advanced S-300 anti-aircraft missiles to Assad, officials said, I think this was last Monday, warning Israel not to attack the new air defense systems. I can't read this article because Haaretz has one of those. You can only look at like 3 articles a month or something stupid like that. But anyway, as you can see from the title, Israel doesn't seem to care that Russia might react and strike at Israeli targets. They don't want Syria getting these S-300 missiles because they can reach Israel, and they see that as a serious threat. Of course, Syria sees the Israeli-backed terrorists, US-backed terrorists, Saudi-backed terrorists, and UK-backed terrorists that they're fighting as a threat, obviously. And us, the West, who funds them and gives them intelligence and helps them plan these staged provocations like happened earlier in the month, that's all us. Not us the people, but our governments. It's Israel, it's UK, it's US, it's France, it's definitely Saudi Arabia, maybe Qatar. You know, all these Arab nations that are allied with Israel and allied with us. This is the little bit I get to read from here. Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman said Tuesday that Israel may strike the Russian-made S-300 anti-aircraft defense systems in Syria if they are used against Israel. I suspect he may hit them even if they are not used against Israel. Anyway, I think I'm at about 25 minutes, and this went a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I just wanted to get this information out to you guys. See if I can get a few more photos. Oh well, here. This is how Ivan Sidorenko, Danny Mackey, a reporter. Okay. So this is coming from, I believe, someone that's in the Syrian government, a tweet. The martyrs of Brigade 47 in Hama are mostly from the Zanabiyun Brigade in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard belonging to the emergency operations in the middle area of Syria, and the damage is the explosion of ammunition warehouses. Syria won't be a haven for America and Israel. We won't leave Zainab bint Ali in Damascus. Syria al-Assad won't fall, and the Revolutionary Guard defending the holy sites are the bravest men. Mercy to the martyrs and quick recovery to the injured. So Syria is basically saying they're not going to take this, they're not going to back down, they're going to keep fighting the terrorists that they know are backed by us, that are backed by Israel, and they're not going to allow their country to be a haven for Israeli and American-backed jihadi terrorists. So, let's see if there was anything else worth noting. Here it is. Danny Mackey, a reporter on the ground in Syria, previously, I guess just yesterday, said, "The Syria war will not stop. Middle East experts warn of more airstrikes to come, and the Israelis will continue striking these different targets, and there are between 20 to 25 targets to choose from, so it will play out considerably." I believe there were sources from within the Mossad a week or two ago, getting this from Blackstone Intelligence, that said there were up to 40 targets Israel was pushing the U.S. to target when we said mission accomplished and they said mission not accomplished. And so this is a continuation of this. This is the mission was not accomplished for the NATO. It was not accomplished for Israel. U.S. said that, good publicity, but it wasn't. It was an utter failure. And this, however, was not an utter failure. This did what they wanted it to do. They took out actual military facilities. They took out ammunition. This considerably helped the terrorists, much more than our strikes, which were most of them were intercepted according to video footage and Syrian media. So I'll just end on this. After the Israeli attack on IRGC soldiers at T4 and Homs Governorate on 9 April 2018, President Putin of Russia personally warned Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu against further airstrikes on Syrian allies in Syria. Obviously, to no avail. So, thanks for listening. Sorry this video took a little bit longer for such a short little update, but I wanted to get all the information, all the facts, and what I think is the bigger picture out there. So hope this video was helpful. Please feel free to watch the last couple videos I put up, filled with good information on the cover-up, the Syria false flag, gas attack hoax, and whatnot. So yeah, check out my latest videos, and hope you enjoyed this post. Keep your eyes open, question everything. This has been Jason. Peace.